mystery theory. And in this series, we're not only counting down to the last day of October. Today's case takes us to a 300-acre dairy farm. If you think a dairy farm is an organized and very well-oiled machine, that's not the case. Unless the dairy farm is a bigger enterprise with millions and millions of dollars thrown at it. It's a busy business. It's exhausting, and without the proper help, almost an impossible business. Now, Hal and Joe Rogers worked very long hours on their farm located northwest Ohio, and they did this for most of their adult lives. They were very hard working people, and they had a goal in mind. Now, Hal and Joe were high school sweethearts, and they got married just a few months after their graduation, and they wanted to start a family right away. Michelle was their firstborn, and 3 years later, Christy was born. Now, as you can probably imagine, the girls were expected to help with chores on the farm. They were also very hardworking, and part of their jobs was to look after the cows. Christy, the youngest, she followed her dad around the farm since she was a little one. And overall, both girls loved the farm. But over the years, the day in, day out, every, repetitive hard work started to wear out the mom, Joe. Now, this farm that they worked very hard at, it was owned by Hal and his younger brother, John. John lived in the property, but in a small trailer. John was, to say the least, he was a little odd. He would wear military clothing, and he would share with everyone that worse than your typical odd neighbor. In March 1988, he was accused of raping a woman that lived with him in his trailer. The woman told the police that he put on a mask, bound her arms with handcuffs, blindfolded her, and raped her while holding a knife to her throat. Although he was wearing this mask that covered his face, she told police she knew it was him because of his voice. She also said to the police that she knew that he had videotaped the rape. So when they were investigating, they found a briefcase, and of course the videotape of this horrible thing that happened. The briefcase had more videotapes. Detectives found photos of Michelle, Denise, who was 16 years old at the time. She was naked, blindfolded, and her hands and feet were bound with rope. They also found a cassette. For those of you who don't know what a cassette is, it's the old school CD, I guess. In this audio that was recorded in the cassette, you could hear Michelle screaming for her uncle to let her go. So police went to Michelle and she confirmed the rape. And she also said that he was doing this, or has been doing this for a while. More than 2 years, actually. And he told her that if she ever told anyone, that he would kill her. Now, before how Michelle's dad and John's brother knew about this accusation, he had promised his brother John that he would post his $10,000 bond. Remember that he was charged for raping his, allegedly, according to John, raping his girlfriend. But he had no idea that the police found these tapes with his daughter in them. Despite posting the bond, the news destroyed this family. And to make things worse, the mom, Hal's and John's mom, who was Michelle's grandmother, refused to believe Michelle and stood by her son, John, which drove Hal absolutely crazy. So he stayed away from his mother too. Of course, initially John denied the rapes, and he kind of held to this idea of innocence because Michelle was embarrassed and, as you can imagine, traumatized by this happening to her, so she didn't want to testify against him. She wanted all to go away. In the end, if you ask me, there was no need to testify. They had evidence, and also John pleaded guilty to raping the first woman, so he was sentenced to 7 to 25 years in prison. As you can probably imagine, Hal felt betrayed, and he losing their relationship with his mother and now rapist brother, he fell into a deep depression. He also started disappearing for days at a time, and he would go and lock himself in his brother's trailer. The entire town was gossiping about this family, which didn't help. So the following year, Joe and the girls thought it would be good to get away for a while. Hal couldn't leave the farm, but at least the 3 girls could get away from this small town. Michelle and Christy had never had a real vacation. They've never been out of Ohio. And Joe, the mom, only left once when she went on her honeymoon with Hal. And they didn't travel much, but they spent their honeymoon in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So the 3 girls planned a trip to Florida. They wanted to leave everything behind. They wanted to go to Disneyland and go to every theme park, really, they could think of. They wanted to go to the beach and enjoy the sunshine. They loved the idea of the warm ocean in Florida, even though none of them knew how to swim. Now, Michelle was was kind of hesitating because she didn't want to leave her boyfriend behind, Jeff Bisbee. They'd only been dating for a month, but she was that teenager love phase. So they would talk on the phone every night. If you're wondering, Jeff had heard the rumors about Michelle and her uncle, but he didn't know the details. He didn't want to know. It was Michelle's business, and clearly she didn't want to share anything about it. So Michelle and Jeff said their final goodbye. They kissed on their front porch while the little one, Christy, who was 14, was watching. The three girls, excited, left, packed the car and left. They left on May 26, 1989, and headed south at the break of dawn. The first day of driving was exhausting, but they were so excited to be there. Joe was driving pretty fast, and even though Michelle had her driver's license, she still continued to drive most of the way herself. The first night they stopped in a hotel just across the Georgia border, then continued on their first stop the next day, Jacksonville, Florida. They went to the zoo. They headed inland to Silver Springs, where they took a tour on a glass-bottom boat. They were happy that they were having this wonderful vacation and took lots of pictures along the way. Then they moved towards the coast and drove down Highway 1 toward Cape Canaveral. Joe decided to send a postcard to Hal, and Michelle sent a postcard to Jeff. She felt guilty for being on vacation during the week of Jeff's birthday, so she got this funny postcard that had a bikini-clad woman rolling in the sand on the Florida beach with an alligator snapping at her bikini bottom. And it read this: "Hi, how is Colorado Springs and rode on a glass bottom boat. Today, we're going to a beach and then to SeaWorld. You have fun at work and behave yourself. Have a great birthday. I'll be thinking of you. I miss you. Love ya, Shell. After that, the girls were having so much fun that they had no intention of slowing down. They went to SeaWorld, Epcot Center, and Disney's Hollywood Studios, and by Thursday, they were headed to Tampa. They checked in to their hotel, Tampa Bay, overlooking Tampa Bay, and snapped a few pictures. They unpacked, and then Michelle called Jeff for his birthday. Joe and Christy couldn't stop looking at brochures that they picked up from the hotel's lobby. The Busch Gardens brochure seemed like their next stop. So she called the place and wrote directions on the brochure so they could go the next day. But that evening, they went out for dinner at the hotel restaurant. And as you can imagine, this was the last time they were seen alive. Joe and the girls were supposed to be back at the farm that Sunday, June the 4th. Joe was scheduled for work, and Michelle's summer school started that next Monday. Hal didn't get any calls either. That same Sunday morning, a sailboat going under the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, which is where Tampa Bay opens to or into the Gulf of Mexico. And as this was happening, the captain noticed something floating in the water. And it was a body. He called the Coast Guard to report what he found. And it was the body of a female, floating face down, naked below the waist. Her legs and feet were bound with yellow rope. The same rope was tied to her neck. That was tied to something beneath the water, partially weighing the body down. So the Coast Guard cut the rope and lifted the body. At this point, a second body was found, not far north from the first body. A female, face down, bound with the same type of yellow rope and naked below the waist. A rope around her neck was tied to a large object just like rope around their necks. The bloating caused by decomposition had caused the bodies to float, so no matter how heavy this object was, they still managed to float. They were bound in the same way by the same rope. And the one difference is that one of the girls had managed to get a hand free. They were all gagged with duct tape over their mouths. It was hard, but it was determined that they were all sexually assaulted. There were no defensive wounds and no evidence that a knife or a gun was used against them. But they were alive when they entered the water with a concrete tied around their necks. I just can't. I feel like it's one of the most horrible ways to die, in my opinion. Or it's just I don't get it. I don't understand how somebody can do that. But anyways, although Jeff Michelle's boyfriend barely knew Michelle's father, he called and called asking about Michelle and why, she wasn't back and not calling him and stuff like that. He was super, super worried, and both of them were super worried. Hal ended up calling Joe's friends and relatives, but nobody heard from them. By Wednesday, they were 3 days late, and they were in pure panic. He went to the bank and got $7,000 in cash, with a plan of hiring a private plane. The girls were supposed to check out from their hotel room almost a week ago by now, or by then. The maid at the Tampa Days Inn noticed the suitcase hadn't moved. The girls never slept on those beds that night. The soaps were still in the wrapper, and a purse lay on the table. Everything was clean and nothing was touched. When the news broke about the 3 female bodies, finally they decided to call the police. The hotel did, on June the 8th. Management thought that maybe these bodies were of these girls that never checked out of their hotel room. Police checked out the room. They got fingerprints from a toothpaste depression because of the brother hurting his child. So when the local sheriff told him about the rape and murder of his wife and both daughters, he just couldn't handle it. He fell apart. However, he continued to work on the farm and tried to find or try to deal with what was happening that way. Police found the girl's car near Courtney Campbell Parkway at a boat ramp. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Christie's cow toy was still stuck to the back window with a suction cup. They even found a sheet from a Days Inn notepad where Joe had written directions to the boat ramp. It appeared that someone had given them the instructions to the boat ramp, and it seemed like they were told to look for a blue and white boat. They also found the brochure for Clearwater Beach, Florida. At the bottom of the brochure were directions to their hotel, but the handwriting wasn't the same. Someone other than Joe had written it. During the investigation, detectives learned of Michelle's rape by her uncle. John was in prison at the time, but they needed to eliminate the possibility that he somehow had something to do with this. Maybe he arranged something for, maybe he arranged this to happen away from home. But when detectives flew to Ohio and interviewed him, they realized that he was not behind this. He was not, I don't want to say smart enough to do it, but they knew he didn't. There was no way he could arrange that from behind bars, and he was described as a loner in jail, and he had no friends, so no packages delivered, and the only phone call or visitor was his mother. Now, as you can imagine, Hal was going through a lot. The news wouldn't stop talking about his wife and daughters. He coped by working on his farm, and at the funeral, he wanted to punch his own mother. He couldn't believe she had the nerve to show up. After calling Michelle a liar, Hal was so angry and so sad. He was mad at his own mother, at God, at the killer. He showed no emotion, though. And it is said that right after the funeral, he went to go back to work. Police considered posted bond for his brother, even though his brother was accused of doing that to his own daughter. But they didn't know that he didn't know at the time. And then the $7,000 cash withdrawal from the bank. It was suspicious. But he never left the state of Ohio. So investigators used a forensic handwriting expert to analyze the brochure. And the examiner noticed right away two unique characteristics about the handwriting. The person who wrote this note had a peculiar habit of capitalizing T's in the middle of the words, which I have to say, it's pretty weird. There were also 4 Y's in the note, in each written in a different style. Weird again. It was also analyzed for fingerprints, and they found several. But they all belonged to the girls. There was only one print, unidentified, but it was a partial palm print. They had nothing to match it to, so it was useless. Hundreds of tips came from the public in Florida, but one of them seemed to be relevant. A 24-year-old woman, Judy Blair, visiting from Canada, who said that she was approached by a man just 2 weeks before the murders in the same area. This guy offered her a sunset cruise on his blue and white boat. She also said that once they were away in open water, the man sexually assaulted her. Judy told the police that he approached her at a 7-Eleven store, that he was white, in his mid-30s, with reddish blonde hair, 180 pounds, and about 5'10". He was very friendly, and he was driving a dark-colored Jeep Cherokee with tinted windows. So he did take her out on a sunset cruise. But once the sun had set, he tried to have sex with her. When she refused, he got angry and attacked her. He would say, "What are you going to do? Nobody's going to hear you. What are you going to do? Jump out of the boat. Is sex something worth losing your life over?" She told him that she was a virgin, but that only made him more interested. Once he was done, he apologized and said, quote, "I've taken something from you that you can never get back," end quote. He started throwing up over the edge of the boat right after that. He actually threw up several more times as he was getting to shore. Then he took our camera, pulled the film out, and threw it overboard. When they got to the shoreline, he spared her life and let her swim to safety. she said she noticed rope on the boat that was similar to the rope used in his murders, and also duct tape. At this point, the police knew it had to be the same man, and using the girl's description, they created a sketch and released it to the public. It was on TV, the news, printed news, I should say, posters everywhere, but nothing. After 3 years had passed, police decided to share the handwriting, which was quite unique. They released it to the public, hoping somebody would recognize it. So they placed 5 billboards throughout the Tampa area near the boat ramp, featuring the image of the handwriting, and asked the question, "Wrote these directions?" I mean, it's a long shot, but at least they wanted to try. And then Joanne Steffi, she noticed that she'd seen this before, and she saw this handwriting and thought it was very, very weird. She looked at this sketch once again, and the description of the suspect matched a neighbor who lived just 2 doors down. This guy was a 43-year-old. He was an aluminum siding contractor. His name was Oba Chandler, and she had seen his handwriting because she hired him to do some work on her house. Now, Oba was married and had 8 children from 7 different mothers. And everything fit. He had reddish blonde hair. The size, the weight, the sketch was very, very similar. He had a blue Jeep Cherokee, and his house backed onto a canal where he had his own boat that happened to be blue and white. Joanne remembered that she still had the invoice that Oba gave her. When she looked at the handwriting, it was him. He capitalized every T in the middle of a word, and everything clicked. So she called the police. Now, let's talk about Oba Chandler, who was born in 1946. And guess what? He grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. When he was 5 years old, one of his brothers died, and his father never recovered from the loss. So 5 years later, he hanged himself in the basement of their home. It It was so hard for Oba that he, according to his family, he jumped into the grave as the grave diggers shoveled the dirt over the coffin. In his early teenage years, Oba was arrested for stealing cars. By 18 years old, he was arrested over 20 times. I mean, he had all kinds of charges: burglary, possession of counterfeit currency, armed robbery, kidnapping, and he even placed himself while he was looking into a woman's house. He tormented women. He would show himself naked. I mean, how is somebody like this guy free? I have no idea. This is the second or third case I've researched recently where a sex offender is released over and over and over and over again and continues to do the same thing over and over again, hurting people. He was arrested on September 24th, 1992, and Judy Blair identified him as the man who raped her. His handwriting was analyzed once again and matched the brochure exactly, and his palm print also matched. Detectives put together a strong case. Phone records from the night of the rape and the night of the murders. He would even call his wife from where he was committing these crimes. He testified in his own defense. He insisted that the ROGERS girls gave him oh God, get it together. He gave them directions but never saw them again. He also claimed that he was in his boat on Tampa Bay those nights, but he was fishing by himself. That he was having engine problems, and that he even asked the Coast Guard for help, but ended up fixing the problem himself. Even Judy Blair came from Canada to testify against this guy. A former employee of Oba Chandler testified that the morning after the murders, he was saying that he, quote-unquote, dated 3 women on the bay the night before. Even his daughters and son-in-law testified against him. One of his daughters said that he once said, quote, "I can't go back to Florida because police are looking for me because I killed some women." Even 2 cellmates from jail testified against him. You would say stuff to them, and there's one inmate said that Oba Chandler it's easy to tie someone up with. The second inmate told the court that he said, quote, "If the bitch didn't resist, I wouldn't be here in jail," end quote. As you can probably imagine, he was found guilty of all 3 murders and was sentenced to death on November 4th, 1994. Oh, I mean, happy birthday to me. That day, he went to jail. I'm happy. Great birthday gift for me. Judge Susan F. Schaefer told him that day, quote, "Oba Chandler, you have not only forfeited your right to live among us under the laws of the state of Florida, you have forfeited your right to live at all, Mr. Chandler. May God have mercy on your soul." Even the judge described him as a man with no soul, since he was already on death row for the murders. Prosecutors spared Judy Blair the emotional heartache of going through the trial. He was suspected of other murders, but no additional charges were brought against him. On November 15, 2011, he was executed, and his last words were, quote, "Kiss my rosy red ass," end quote. His written statement wrote, "You're killing an innocent man today." 3 years after his execution, DNA evidence proved that Oba Chandler had murdered 20-year-old Ibeliz Barrios Perquise. Her body was found in Coral Springs, Florida, in 1990. This piece of garbage lived just a mile away from her. Now, I don't have much to say about this case, because I think I shared enough to help you make up your own mind. But if there's something I need to add to this, is this. What happened to his dad and what happened to his brother was a tragedy. What happened to him was a tragedy. But you and I know that tragedies happen every single day in this world. You probably went through something horrific in your life, or you know somebody who did, yet they are not raping and murdering women. So I can't believe I had to cover that part. I almost left it out on this case. But how can I leave that part out? It wouldn't be fair to the whole case. But honestly, in my humble opinion, it's irrelevant what happened to his father, what happened to his brother, in relation to what he did. Is it a tragedy? Absolutely. No child would have to. I mean, it needs to go through that much pain, in my humble opinion. But please, don't give me that crap that because of that happening to because he really became a monster. Anyways, this is a super long video, and I'm sure that you heard about this case. But once I got all this information together, I think it gave a different aspect. It covered a different phase, and in my opinion, it gives us a better picture of how tragic this was, how unfair sometimes life is to some people. I'd hate to complain about what happened to the Rogers. I really would hate to complain about it. But why? I mean, Michelle had to go through it with her own uncle. Hal was going through depression. They were just trying to get their lives together. The girls leaving the farm, enjoying quality time, the first family vacation. Hal stayed behind to cover the work of the farm. And after all this is how their lives ended. I am so sorry, but this is one of those cases that leave me so empty and wondering why. What is the purpose of one's life to be born into this world and then have to go through all of this to end in the most horrific way? I guess I will never know. But it's just one of those things that it makes me wonder and wonder why some people have to endure this amount of pain, this helplessness. Being so far away from home, so far away from their aggressor, yet finding a monster far away from home. Anyways, a heavy case that I don't even know how to end. All I'm gonna say is that some cases give me hope of change. You know, some others leave me completely empty. And this is one of